Well, Patrick Cook here. So thanks for joining me. I hope your summer's going well. Mine is. A lot of creativity, a lot of time with family and friends. So, over the years, I have been using Mandelbulb, and one of the interesting elements of working with Mandelbulb is, it's a generative fractal application. So invariably, you're exploring a scene. You come across a scene that looks really great, and then you want to put it aside. You want to save it as an M3P file, so that you can resurrect it again when you're looking for an idea for a new project. And I might sit down to an animation and trip across maybe 5 or 6 or even 10 of these scenes, which are really nice, but I don't have the time, or I don't want to take the time to work on them at the moment. So what I've done over the years is I have put aside these accidental scenes, and I put them aside, and then when I'm in the mood for a project, a Mandelbulb project, I'll go through these and I'll take a look at them and get ideas. So basically, over the years, I have developed methodology for saving Mandelbulb fractal scenes, so that I can actually go back and get ideas for a project. Now, I also will deliberately sit down and look for a whole bunch of different scenes that I just put aside. It may not be in a particular project at the moment, but I'll sit down, I'll take a session, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, and I'll just kind of walk through and just experiment with the navigator and find interesting scenes. Throw a couple fractal formulas together, see what I get, and if I get something really cool, I put it aside, and I put it into a library or a format in which I can go back and review it, looking for a new project. What I wanted to show you in this live stream, as well as the one that the second part of it, which will be next Monday the 10th, what I want to show you is how to create a library of Mandelbulb fractals or scenes that you can refer back to be able to, to get an idea for a project. So this is a process of not only creating fractal scenes that you can refer to, but it's also a way of being able to preserve the scenes that you run across while you're working on a project, that you can preserve them and include them in your idea library. Okay? All right, so let's get started. Let me show you how this is done, or how I do it. Now, there's all kinds of different ways to do this, but this is how I do it. What we're interested in here today is the creation of a library. We're not so much interested in composition. Okay? So I'm just going to kind of throw something on the screen here so that we just kind of make it work. Now, there's 2 ways that we can do it. You can certainly go in and pick a couple formulas. Let's just throw 2 Mandel boxes in here. All right, or maybe an A Tetris. All right, calculate that. Let's see what we get. All right, well, it's something. All right, now the other way we can do this is I can go back to, let's just say I put 2 amazing boxes in there. Let me get the scale here so that we can actually see something. Okay. Now, I can certainly use the mutagen. All right. Now, that's a tool. I did a whole series on this up on the YouTube channel, Learn Mandelbulb. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that scene right there, and I'm just going to mutate it. So this mutagen will run off and will create mutations of this particular scene. Again, I'm only concerned right now tonight. I'm only concerned with coming up with a scene in which I can demonstrate how to be able to create idea scenes from that for an idea library. All right, so let's, I don't know, let's pick this one right here. Let's send that back to the editor. Okay, all right, it's something. I'm going to go ahead and close the mutagen here because we don't need it. All I've done here is I've shown how to come up with something. All right, some scene that we can use to demonstrate this. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to utilize the animation maker to kind of play a trick. We're not going to make an animation. We're gonna utilize the animation maker to give us a bunch of MP3s or a bunch of parameter sets that we can then put into the library. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the navigator. All right, and let's go exploring. Okay. So I'm gonna walk in on this. Just walk in. All right. Just kind of use my mouse. Kind of look around a little bit. Walk in a little bit more, something like that. Okay. All right. Now I have a scene. Maybe in an ideal situation, you would say that's the scene I want to work with. I'm going to make a high resolution still, or I'm going to make an animation out of that. But we're only interested tonight in creating using this as a one element of our idea library. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that over to the animation maker. All right, so now I have one keyframe in my animation keyframe sequence. All right, again, tonight we're not doing animation. We're just using this animator as a tool. All right, now let me set up a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this animation maker to create me a whole bunch of MP3s, M3Ps, and some JPEGs from my library. All right, but I need to get this thing set up. So you'll understand a little bit more as we go along why I make these settings. I'm going to set this to overwrite. That simply means that when the animation maker makes a frame, if the file already exists, it will overwrite it. All right. I'm going to set this over here to linear. The quadratic Bezier. These are two interpolation methods that you have with the Mandelbulb animation maker. The linear will tend to kind of snap from one frame to the next frame, whereas the quadratic will tend to use sort of like a curve, not just snap, but kind of gradually go to the next frame. Now, what the animation maker does, and this is the point of the next setting, is that between two keyframes, it will interpolate the frames in between these two keyframes. It interpolates frames. And the idea here is that you get a number of frames that you then use in your video editor to create a video or a motion animation. Okay? So the animation maker will fill in the frames between keyframes. Okay? So that's why I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose a number. That 50 instructs the animation maker of Mandelbulb to make 50 frames in between those two keyframes. 50 frames. I don't need that many. I'm going to knock that down to 25. All right. Now, the next setting I want to do here is right here, M3P. Now, you'll understand why I'm going to do an MP3, a series of MP3s first. You'll understand that a little bit later when we get to that point. All right, so sort of kind of like trust me on that one. So now I need to set my output folder. So what I'm going to do is, now with Mandelbulb, you actually need to set up your folder. All right, let's see, here we go. Okay. With Mandelbulb, this folder right here, you don't have the ability to create a new folder from this particular save as utility. All right. We take that for granted now in the Windows environment, but you don't have that with Mandelbulb. So what I'm going to do is I've got a folder here, and this is my library. Oh, actually, this is the demonstration library. I'm sorry, folks, I'm not going to show you my own true library. I'm going to show you one that for purposes of demonstration. I'm going to make a new folder here. I'm just going to say demo. How's that? All right. Okay, now. So now that I have a new folder, I can come in here and I can find this demo. Now, all I'm doing now is I'm just saving this animation as an M3A file. This is the Mandelbulb's animation folder structure. I'm saving that. So what I've done is I have saved this animation, which only has one keyframe yet, so I'm not done yet. But I wanted to save this now so that I can get that out of the way. All right. Now I need to pick my output folder since I just created that folder. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create demo. I'm going to select demo. So now all the frames that are going to, this is going to produce are going to go to the demo subfolder of this drive M. Okay. Now, here comes the magic. Here comes the magic. Now, what I'm doing here is I am creating an ideal library. And so I specifically want a bunch of frames in between keyframes. I want a bunch of frames that are different. I want Mandelbulb to create a bunch of fractal scenes that I can go to and refer to later. And I'm going to automate this process rather than, I mean, I could take this one right here. I could run it back to the main editor. I could save that to the library folder we call demo. I could go change it, drive it back to the main editor, save it, change it, main editor, save. Okay, now that's fine. But what I want to do is I want to get Mandelbulb to make a whole bunch of these for me so that I can go refer to them later on and get some ideas. All right, now, keyframes. I'm going to create multiple keyframes for this particular method of creating frames for my ideal library. Now, I am not so much interested in the frames between two keyframes, the frames. I'm not interested in camera movement. All right, that doesn't really give me a whole lot of ideas. All right, I mean a camera movement. All right, so this one right here could be a go in my idea library. That one goes in my idea library. This one goes in my idea library. This one, this one, this one. Well, sort of like, what's the point? All right, I'm not getting a lot of interesting changes to the scene. Okay, so I'm not proposing that you create a scene where you're moving your camera through the scene. That's not really very interesting. All right, now with that understood, Mandelbulb has the capability of animating like virtually every parameter. A parameter would be a formula property, okay, all right, lighting, post-processing effects, shadowing, stuff like that, hard shadows. All right. Mandelbulb can animate anything that you can change in the application. Now that's where it gets interested in terms of creating ideas for your idea library. So what I'm going to do is I am going to change formula properties. And I'm going to have 2 keyframes, and then I'm going to have Mandelbulb make a bunch of frames in between. And ideally, each of these frames is actually going to turn out to be an interesting fractal scene, not with the camera moving through it, but with the formula property actually changing from one frame to the next. So I have a keyframe right here. All right, now I moved it, so I'll tell you what, let's push it back. I'm going to push it back to the main editor. Okay, I'm going to pull it back into the navigator. That is, this right here is this keyframe. Okay, and I have 2 formulas. I have an A-Box Platinum B, and I have an Amazing Box. Now, it came from Mutagen. Now, remember, that came from Mutagen. Okay. All right, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to change the Amazing Box formula. I'm not moving the camera. I'm not doing any of this move down here. All right, all I'm doing is I'm changing this scale property. Let's do something like that. Now, do you see all this kind of dull, flat, orangey? That means that the fractal surface is clipped. The renderer doesn't have enough data to be able to render that surface properly. So I don't want to create a scene where I've got all this clipping. So I'm going to keep working on this, something like that. Let's come down here and mess around with the fold. All right. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Let's see what min-r does for us. Okay. Something like that. Okay. All right. Now, I need to get off of this keyframe, because if I push this keyframe to the animation maker, it's going to overwrite that keyframe. I don't want to do that. I got to get on a new keyframe, a blank keyframe. Okay? So now I'm going to take this scene, which only has formula property adjustments, no camera movement, and I'm going to push that over to the animation maker. I got 2 keyframes now. All right, now just to be on the safe side, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it. All right, so just in case the animation maker or I make a mistake, it'll be saved and I can recover very easily. So what I have here is I have an animation that has 2 keyframes with no camera movement, with only one formula's property has been modified. All right. It's going to render at 480 by 360 because one key point in this idea library is that you're not taking the time to create quality images. That's not the point. You're only taking the time to come up with ideas. And once you have an idea, once you have an image that gives you an idea, then you can pull it back into Mandelbulb, and then you can change the resolution, you can change the formulas, the lighting, whatever you want. We're only creating frames that we can then database, that we can then get ideas from. We are not interested in quality. We're not interested in lighting at this time. All right. We're not interested in post-processing effects. We're only interested in scenes, structures. All right. All right. So let's do this. Now, you remember now I pointed out M3Ps here. All right. And I told you you'll understand that as we go along. So now with this 2 keyframe animation, all right, with the resolution, overwrite, linear, all right, because I don't need the transition between frames to be on a curve. I just snap one to the next, that's fine. All right, and M3P. Now, I need to do one other thing before I punch this. I don't need 25 frames of this keyframe. I don't need any frames from this keyframe. I could put a 0 in here, and Mandelbulb would be just fine with that, and I would get 25. I'd get 50 frames. Let's make that 25. I'd get 25 frames. All right, and between these 2 keyframes, it'll work just fine. Or I could put a 1 in there. I don't need 25 of those end frames there. That's just a waste of time. I'm going to put 1 in there. All right, so I have everything all set to go here. I'll just I'll save it again. Okay. Now, one of the reasons that I'm dogged about saving this animation, I don't need to save MP3s up here. I don't need to do that because all my parameters, which make up an M3P, they're all here. They're all here. So I only need to save the animation. I don't need to save each one of these M3Ps. So I'm more concerned about saving the animation than anything else. If I needed to recover this keyframe right here back into my navigator, okay, I would click this button right here. This button, I just clicked it, pushed it up to the main editor. All right. I could calculate it to prove it. Okay, that frame and this keyframe is now in the editor. Now I can pull it back into the navigator. Okay, so, and I can do that over here too. If I needed this keyframe to be recovered, I can push it to the main editor, calculate it just to prove it's there, navigator, okay? All right, so the point is that I really only need to save the animation, the M3A. I don't need to save anything else. All right, so now let's have Mandelbulb create us a bunch of frames. This configuration right here, 2 keyframes, and this configuration is going to make 25 frames in between. Each of these frames is going to have the formula property slightly different. So I should have, by the time this is all done, I should have 25 different, similar, but different scenes. Let's do it. Now I'm gonna make a bunch of MP3s and 3Ps first. All right, so I got that all set. Let's punch that. Look how it zips right through. Very, very quick. Now, if I go look at my demo folder, if I can find it, where's my demo folder here? Oh, it's right here. Okay. It's my demo folder right here. Now I've got 25 M3Ps. Okay. All right, good. So now, but the M3Ps don't go into my library, and I'll show you that when we get to it. Now what I want to do is switch this over to JPEGs. and I want to punch a bunch of JPEGs in here so that we can actually see what the frames look like. If you wanted to, you could output PNGs. That's fine. It's your preference. Or you could output BMPs. Now, I'm sure you know what the difference is. A JPEG is it's a compressed, it's a lossy file compression. A PNG is not a lossy. It doesn't have file compression. That's true with the BMP as well. With this ideal library, we don't need fat files like that. We just don't need them. Because the JPEG is only going to give you a visual of a fractal scene in your ideal library that you want to work with. And when you want to work with that fractal scene, you are going to pull up the corresponding M3P file. So you don't want a big, fat, heavy, uncompressed file. So JPEG. Let's just do a JPEG. All right. So let's punch this now. All right. And as you notice, Mandelbulb is zipping through there and is not creating what I anticipated. All right, it is a little bit. It is okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. So what Mandelbulb did here is it created 25 images, and here they are, right in here. There's your image. 25 images. Okay, you see that all right? All right, here's the first JPEG right there. Okay, just step down through them. Okay, all right. So it's modifying the formula. All right, from the first frame to the next frame. That's not camera movement. That's only a modification of the formula. And I only changed one of the two formulas. And so what Mandelbulb gave me here is, in this case, 25 different JPEG images, okay, that each have a slight change of the property of the formula. All right. Now, a couple things to notice here. I could have come in here and I could have put 50. I could have generated 50 frames or 500. All right. But there's you strike a balance. Well, I could, for that matter, I could have made 5 frames for that matter. You want to strike a balance. You don't want too many frames, because if I had my 2 keyframes and I had 500 frames in between, with the formula property being morphed from keyframe 1 to keyframe 2, each of these little JPEG files is not going to show a whole lot of difference. Okay? So 500 is just overload. And at some point, I would have to sit there when I'm working on getting an idea. I'd have 500 different, this very little change in between. Now, if you were to stick a 5 in there, okay, well, now you have your 2 keyframes. You have 5 frames in between. Okay, that gives you a good modification of the formula property from one frame to the next, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of frames to use as an idea base at some point in the future. Okay? 10 frames is better. You get 10 frames in between. 25, okay. And it really, the number of frames that you use here has a lot to do with how radical your change is in the formula. All right. So let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to throw all this away. So all of this has got thrown away. And I'm going to redo this. Now, all right, now I don't really need the second keyframe here because I'm going to redo this whole thing just for demonstration purposes. I am going to stay with this keyframe. I'm going to pull that to the main editor. I didn't have to render it, but I wanted to render it so you could see it. Now I'm going to pull it back down into the navigator. All right. All right, I got to get off that keyframe because I don't want to overwrite that. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do, again, I don't want to do camera movement. Camera movement really isn't that really effective for your generating an idea library. So I'm going to stay with formula modification. So here's formula number 2. Here's formula number 1. I'm going to change something here on formula number 1. I'm modifying the scale. Get something interesting. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to modify the fold. Okay, that's okay. Now I'm going to come over here, get back to formula number 2, and I'm going to modify the properties of this amazing box formula. Okay, oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, good. So what I've done here for this second demonstration is I have changed a number of properties of the 2 formulas. So I have a much more radical change between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2. So now I'm going to push that into the animation maker. So there is my second keyframe. So I should have a lot of very interesting frames in between these 2 keyframes when I render. All right. Now again, we'll go for, I'll tell you, let's go for 10. Let's go for 10. I don't need 25 frames out here. So I'm going to set that to 1. So when all said and done here, I will have 10 frames in between those 2 keyframes. These 2 keyframes have a fairly radical modification of the 2 formulas with multiple properties that have been modified. I should have very interesting result here. Now, I always want to generate, excuse me, I always want to generate M3Ps. I'm going to show you why in a few minutes. So let's go ahead and generate 10 of these M3Ps. All right, there we go. Okay. Do we have it in the demo here? Where is it? There they are. Okay, there's my 10 M3Ps. Now I'm going to go to 10 JPEGs. I'm not modifying anything here because I want my JPEG files to perfectly represent what is in the M3P file. That's why I don't modify anything. I output the M3Ps and then I immediately output the JPEGs. Now let's do that. All right, so there they go. Okay, that's a much different change. I'm only getting 10 keyframes here. I'm sorry, 10 frames. So there we go. So that, and if I step down through, that's pretty significant modification. Much better. Okay. All right, much better. So what I have here now, because I did my two keyframes, I only did 10 in between. I have a much larger visual change between the frames. All right, so just to kind of look at that again. So I now have 10 idea scenes for future reference. Okay? All right. Now, all right, let's talk about a couple things here, and then I'm going to show you the database. Now, next week, we're going to be focusing on the database part of this. But I'll give you a demo here before we're done. Now, a couple kind of rules of the thumb here. You don't want too many frames in between, because if you have idea frames, scenes, all right, I'm going to call that an idea scene. That's an idea scene. That's another idea scene, okay? Just to get our terminology right. If you have too many idea scenes between, you're just overloading yourself when you sit to go through and get some project ideas. If you have too few frames in between, 3 or 5 or whatever, all right, you're you're eliminating the possibility of having enough ideas to be able to pick through. Okay, so typically you want to have a number of frames that are somewhat relevant to the degree to which you modified your formula properties. If you modified the formula properties between the two keyframes, if you modified those properties significantly, then you would want more frames. If you only modified the formulas slightly, then you're perfectly fine with less frames. Okay? Kind of a rule of thumb. You got to experiment to really kind of figure out what works for you. All right, now, another rule here is that you're not interested in quality right now. You're interested in scenes. You're not interested in quality and lighting and shadowing and all that stuff. That comes later. You're only interested in scenes that will give you ideas or give you a base scene to start a whole new project with. I'll show you that in a minute. All right, you want to keep your resolution reasonable. You don't want to be pounding out 4K versions of this. You don't need that, because you're only using these JPEGs here to give you a visual reference. So you don't need a big resolution file here. As a matter of fact, okay, there we go. So this is only 150K. You just don't need a big file here. All right, so you keep your resolution down. All right. Okay. All right. Another key rule here is that you want to keep the M3Ps in the same folder as your JPEG. All right, your JPEGs, or your PNGs or your BMPs, whatever you decide to do. All right? So you want to keep these M3Ps in the same folder, and here's why. Let's say that you come along. Let's sort these properly. Okay, here we go. Okay, there's one. All right, let's say you come along and you say you're reviewing your idea scenes, and you say, hey, okay, I want to work with this one. I want to work with that one. So what you would do, let me just close everything here because we don't need all this stuff. Oh, that happens to be loaded. Let me pick another one. All right, let's say you want to work with yeah, this scene right here. So after work, you sit down, you say, I want to do a Mandelbulb project with a still, an animation, whatever the case may be. And so you look through your idea library and you land on this. Now, Mandelbulb does not open JPEGs. I'll move this JPEG on top here, and Mandelbulb won't open a JPEG. You're not working with JPEGs. That JPEG is only there to give you a visual, to give you the idea. But you'll notice here that, all right, that because I punched out the M3Ps, which is named identical to the JPEG, there's my MP3. All I need to do is to pull that into Mandelbulb. I'll calculate it to prove that it pulled in. And so now I have a visual of my idea in a low resolution, small JPEG. All right. And right next to it, I have the M3P. So, which I can pull into Mandelbulb, and I'm ready to go. I found an interesting graphic from 3 weeks ago, when I punched out a bunch of frames between 2 keyframes or 10 keyframes or whatever. And I said, that's what I want to work on tonight. And the M3P is right there for you. You load it up, now you go to work. So now you have full access to everything in here. I can open this same thing up here in the navigator, pull that in. I can walk around, I can do whatever I want. This M3P was saved by the animation maker. And so every single idea scene, not only do I have a visual for it, but I also have the M3P saved away separately. Okay? All right, so now I have, well, let's see, in this particular case, I have a little library in which I'm going to call demo album that's sitting here, and I've got 10 scenes, I got 10 graphics, and I got 10 M3Ps that I can pull into Mandelbulb and work with anytime I want. All right. So we don't need that navigator up right there. Okay, so let's do this. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking about an open source, free database application. This is actually this application is trying to be an Adobe Lightroom, where it has image editing capabilities, and it also has image management. We don't care about the image manipulation. We don't care about image editing for purposes of a Mandelbulb library. We only care about the file management, the image management, not the image editing. All right. So this application here called Digicam, you can look it up online. It's free, and it's for our purposes of a Mandelbulb idea library. It works extremely well. I'm very happy with it. Now, so what I have here, now this is not my true, my own library. I'm not going to show that. I'm not going to show that. This is something I put together so that we can play around with this and not risk damaging any of my own library. But you'll notice here that I have albums. The albums. All right. Now I'm going to pull in the album that we call demo that we just did. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do a refresh so that Digicam will see the demo. There it is right there. So there's my 10, oh actually sorry 11, because I did 10 keyframes and I did 1 as that last keyframe, so I got 11. All right, so there they are. So now I can scroll through them and I can look at them and I can say, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. All right. All right. So let's say that I look through that. Well, you know, I'm not really inspired. Let's see what else I got these over here. Okay. Now these here I rendered the JPEGs as 1920 by 1080, all right, HD. So now I just kind of sit here. I mean, I can, you know, it's more than once that I've gone through my library, sitting with a cup of coffee and, you know, after supper or before bed or something like that, and just kind of getting some ideas. Well, you know, what kind of project do I want to take on? And looking through my own library, right? You get some pretty cool ideas. All right. Now, let's go back to our demo here. Now, here's the really interesting part about this whole thing, about this Digicam. With this Digicam, you can tag and mark or label these. All right. So let's say I like that one. I like this one. So let's that might be for a future application, a future project. So I can come up here and I can come down to, I can tag it and I can assign a label and I can make that a green arrow. All right, there's a key shortcut, a lot simpler than this, but I'm going to make that. Now I'm going to tag all of these. Come right here, I'm going to assign a tag. I'm going to make a brand new tag, add new tag, and I'm going to call that demo, the demo tag. So now if I look at the properties of this particular JPEG, you'll see here that it's got a demo tag. All right, this one over here, this one is flag green. All right, so let's say that I'm kind of in a mood to do something. So I could pick the labels here, and I could say, give me all the greens, give me all the ones that I flagged to be an interesting project. All right, and here's the one that we did tonight. Or I could say, give me everything that is in the demo tag. So there we go. Or the castle tag. Or the bones tag. Okay. Or give me everything that I've rated. Or that I've flagged. Or tell me all the ones that I don't want. Because I don't have any flag. Okay. So here's all the stuff that I've looked through before, and I've said, hey, you know, those might make some very interesting projects. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go back to our albums. Now, here's where the magic is, and here's the reason why I punched all those MP3s out. And another reason why I like the Digicam. I use the Digicam. I do not use the Digicam for image editing, only for image management, okay? And as it turns out, it has a lot of capabilities for image management. Now, you'll notice here as I had said before, I saved my MP3s along with my JPEGs in the same folder so that they're sitting right next door to one another. So with my Digicam, I'm going along here and I'm saying, oh, that's, I think I might want to work on this one tonight. So if I right mouse click and I say open in, okay, I could open it with, okay. Let's see. I think we're falling off the screen here. Let me fix that for you here. All right. All right. Let's, okay, what I did, oh, sorry, it's off different screen. What I did is I said, open this one, oh, here, let's get on the right. Open this one in File Manager. All right, that's actually File Explorer. They got, in Windows, it's File Explorer. All right, but that's what they did. They opened up a brand new File Explorer window with that JPEG highlighted, the file, okay? Right next door is my MP3. Slide it onto Mandelbulb, calculate it so you can see it. All right, and here is the file that I said I want to work with. Now let's try another one. Let's say this one right here. All right, I'm going to right click on it. Right click on it, open File Manager, opened up a new window. My MP3 is sitting right there. Slide it on to calculate it. Okay, so there we go. So there it is. Okay, so the Digicam gives me very quick access to the MP3 once I've landed on a graphic looking at a JPEG, and I'm going to work with that. So that was the magic of rendering out all the M3Ps and then immediately rendering out the JPEGs. The JPEGs were for visual reference. The M3Ps were to actually open and get to work with. All right. All right, so now, so I can work with it now and do some pretty interesting stuff. Send it back to, all right, the main screen. Okay, so I'm now working on a project. On the big scope of the whole thing, all right, I have a situation where I have a number of scenes that I've kind of thrown together over time, and I've just put them in this little database application, this free Digicam. And whenever I'm in the mood, I can kind of sit back and get some ideas. Or I could actually use this database to get some ideas about how formulas might be structured. For instance, let's say that I was looking for, I'm in the mood to do a very organic, okay, a very organic. So I'm poking around here. So this particular album right here is very organic. All right. All right. This let's just get okay. Very organic, very smooth, kind of glossy surfaces, as if it was a growing flesh, as opposed to something like this, which is very structured. So let's say I sit down one night and I say, you know, I want to do something that has a lot of organic feel to it, like it has some life to it, like it's living, like I'm looking at a living creature. Okay, all right. So, all right, okay. So here's a library, and I got a bunch of cool stuff in there. So there we go. All right. So right click on this, open in File Manager. There's my new. All right. The M3P is sitting right next to it, 156, 156. All right. Get that over to Mandelbulb. Calculate it. Okay. All right. Now, what I said a few minutes ago is I'm interested in not the image. Let me make the image so you can see it better. I'm not interested in this image. Okay. I'm interested in the formulas that will give me an organic-like scene. So now I have, because it's an M3P that was opened, I have access to the formulas. And I see here that I've got an A-box smooth fold in formula slot number 1. Formula slot number 2, I've got a benzepine 2. And these two formulas are in the alternate hybrid mode. Okay. So I say to myself, you know, okay, those two formulas will give me a very organic kind of feel to them. Well, let's pull it up into the navigator. All right. Get it so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, now I've got, there's my benzepine 2. Here's my A-box smooth fold. So let's kind of mess around with it. Let's see what we can come up with. Okay. So what I've done here is I didn't say let's go find an image that would be interesting to work with. Let me go find a formula configuration that would be interesting to work with. The structure, an organic thing, or an abstract, or whatever. So once you have your idea library, all right, built up and in continual construction, then you could say, well, you know, let me look at some organic. Let me look at this. Let me work on a scene. I remember a scene that I did that was very interesting, and I had flagged that. And let's see if I can find it. So this flag. Okay, there we go. So okay, there was a scene that I had flagged. Okay, and I want to work with that. That's what I feel like doing tonight. That's the sort of creative mode that you can get into. And over time, you build this library up. And you have some absolutely amazing stuff as a result. And all we've done here, all we did is we leveraged the animation maker. We leveraged it where it will say, look, I'll give you 500 frames in between here, between two keyframes, and then you can take all those individual frames and run them into your video editor, DaVinci Resolve, for instance, and you can make a video. And I say, well, I don't want to make a video. What I do want to do is have you give me a whole bunch of different scenes that I could then run into my little database, my image management system, so that I can look at it at some point in the future and say, that's the project I want to do, or get a feeling for the formula configurations that might look interesting and might make for a very interesting animation or still. Okay? All right, so next Monday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to get back into this. We're going to talk more about this Digicam. I'll show you around. We'll make some tagging. We'll do some flagging. We'll do some sorting. All right, and we'll do a little bit more advanced stuff with this whole thing. Okay? So that is... that concludes part 1 of our Mandelbulb Idea Library. I would encourage you between now and next Monday, August 10th, to get yourself set up with this Digicam. all right, and go into Mandelbulb and experiment with utilizing the animation maker like this to give you to output frames. And again, now moving the camera around, it works. Yeah, it works. But I have found that modifying the formulas will give you a much more much more variety in the scenes that you get for your idea library, as opposed to moving the camera around. But they both work, so try them both. So I would encourage you between now and next Monday to experiment with this technique here, see what you can come up with. Download and install the Digicam. It's a Windows application. I'm working with Windows. I believe they have a Mac as well, but Mandelbulb doesn't run on a Mac unless you're running it in a virtual machine. All right? So I'll see you next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll continue our discussion of the Mandelbulb Idea Library. I'll see you then. Take care.